I wanted to examine the idea of possibly some kind of truce being worked towards in the vicious war between the sexes that's raging right now in the Western world, especially. I don't want to sound overly hopeful, and I don't want to be accused of sounding hopeful or anything like that. I do see signs that that some people out there, and not just people, and not just the sort of people you'd expect to say this kind of thing, but people that you wouldn't expect to say this kind of thing. I've seen signs that people are getting tired of it. Men and women both are tired of it, and would like it to come to an end. Now, of course, who do we hold responsible for this? It's. I'm not going to blame women, but I am going to blame and the promotion of an anti-male culture, anti-male social mores, which have been the norm for a while now, and especially in the last 10 years, amongst the the supposedly mainstream institutions, where you would expect there to be neutrality, instead, amongst mainstream institutions, amongst corporations, and other places that used to be bedrocks of not of places where you used to not find sexual politics or any kind of politics. As I've said before, back in the 80s, let's say, I was around back then, of course. In the 80s, the default position was to be apolitical, right? And you were stepping out on a limb if you were ever political in any way, one way or the other. The default was to be apolitical, to not want to talk about politics, to avoid the subject. When political debates come up, you beg off and say, no, this isn't a place for politics. I'm not going to take a position one way or the other on that. That was the norm at one time. But in the last 10 years especially, the norm has been you are expected to take the liberal left side. Or the default is, well, of course you're a radical feminist, right? Of course you want mass immigration, right? Of course you think the white man is guilty of all the most egregious crimes on the planet, right? That's what's expected of you. That has become the norm amongst these same institutions that were institutions of stability at one time. That were institutions that were seen as the bedrock of society, and this is where we can't. We've got to come together here. We've got to put aside our differences and come together and agree that to buy McDonald's Big Macs and I don't know, whatever else, to cheer for the local sports team, and I'm not saying these institutions were. I'm not saying they're good in and of themselves. I'm saying every culture has certain signifiers of mainstream culture, and in a healthier world, the signifiers, the representatives, the institutions that signify where mainstream culture is, in a time of stability, the notion is, well, we're not going to take a stand. We're not going to veer off in one direction or the other because we don't want to alienate people. We want people to come together. Now, of course, you could say that that's they have no principle or whatever, but the idea is you want to represent stability, right? So a corporate entity. I said McDonald's, like McDonald's or IBM or whatever. All the institutions that for the last 10 years have put up rainbow flags all through the month of June. Not until the last couple of years when that seems to have calmed down, we seem to be, and like I said, we seem to be groping towards, or not we, I shouldn't say we, because you and I have nothing to do with it, but the culture shapers seem to be groping towards trying to find their way back from just the promotion of left-wing radicalism, corporate radicalism, really, and it really amounts to neoliberalism. It's all these, it's pro-feminist and anti-male and anti-white and all these other things, but it's also promoting, all of the institutions of the culture, all the major institutions of the culture. So there's sort of this weird streamlining of radical beliefs let's just say virtue signaling radical beliefs, because those are seen as righteous. It's seen as righteous to be left wing, to be pro left, pro the causes of the cultural left, and so it's the era of virtue signaling. Whatever these people actually think, what they actually believe about any of these causes is a different question. And of course, I don't think they have any. Just like before, just like in the 80s, I don't think they truly have any principles. But the thing is that lately, the principles that they have been representing have been the thing that they've been doing lately has been to virtue signal, and to virtue signal by saying, yes, I'm a feminist. Yes, I'm in favor of transgender children. I'm in favor of gender reassignment surgeries on 8-year-olds. All of the craziest, weirdest, most out there, most destructive, kind of things. It's not just like, oh yeah, we like feminism because hey ladies, you're people too, and just like men, you should be given your due, or whatever. It's never phrased that way. It's always like it's always promoted or pitched in a way that is divisive, and that turns, it's like either you virtue signal the way that we do, or you're a bad person and we don't want you. And until very recently, that's been the posture of, the what should be the mediating institutions of Western culture. That was a lengthier preamble than I thought I was going to go into, but but nevertheless, I can be verbose, as you all know. Those of you who actually watch my videos from beginning to end, even when they're long, bear with me for all my verbosity, and maybe you watch on 1.5 speed or whatever. I definitely recommend doing that to everyone out there. It's what I always do when I have to watch one of my own videos. But now let me make the transition to lately. There seems to be a sign from the more mainstream institutions, the ones who have been madly virtue signaling for every destructive, radical left-wing cause. As I said before, the time when this all began, I think, was 2015, when it really began to hit fever pitch, that was when I remember seeing a magazine cover near the front of Barnes and Noble, on the front rack, right in front of where the transactions take place, where I saw the transgender child, and it was, I thought to myself, gosh, they're just going right into the heart of like the most radical and for most people objectionable thing. They're going right after kids. They're going right there, instead of saying, okay, there are people out there who feel they're in the wrong bodies and we should have sympathy for them, and they're people too, and kind of more kind of stuff like that, rhetoric like that. No, they just leapfrog right to the, hey, your kid, the girl you're raising, she's probably a boy. The boy you're raising, he's probably a girl. So be careful of the pronouns that you use. All this kind of stuff. Anyhow, so part of all of this, the strife in the culture, is the promotion of feminism, the promotion of radical feminism, and the anti-male ethos that's promoted, that's concomitantly promoted by mainstream institutions, so that it's become normed, just as being apolitical was the norm in the 1980s, for reasons I've talked about. I think there's a reason for that, for why it was that way then and why it's not that way now. But I won't go into that now. But I've talked about it and written about it elsewhere. Anyway, lately, some institutions, even the New York Times, I shared with y'all, and a lot of people on YouTube have shared the article written by a woman saying, "Men, where have you gone? Please come back. We miss you." Where a woman writes about her experience of men withdrawing from the dating scene, and basically saying, whether she's sincere or not. And it's a flakily written article, as I say. It's not well written at all, and there's a lot of gobbledygook. There's a lot of psychobabble and frilly language that might not signify much. But the ultimate meaning is it's written by a woman, and it's reaching out to men saying, we miss you, please come back into our lives. Which I still think no matter what, whatever you could say about the author and the way that she writes, and no matter what you could say about whether it's sincere or not, it's a pretty big deal that this article has been written and published in the pages of the New York Times. That's a big deal. That's a signifier of something. And another thing that I've seen in the culture lately, there is a major motion picture with a lot of A-list actors, which seems to be essentially saying a lot of the same things that this article in the New York Times was saying. It's trying to extend sympathy towards men in drawing attention to the hardships that men face in the dating world. And now the movie is called The Materialists, or maybe it's just Materialists. I don't think it's a great movie. This is not a review of the movie, of its strengths and weaknesses or anything like that. I do think it's an interesting movie, culturally speaking, in the same way that the article is interesting, culturally speaking, and so that it seems to represent that in some quarters there is a push towards a cultural shift that maybe the guardians, the cultural guardians, are saying, gosh, we've really dug a big hole here. We've really alienated 50% of the population, and for a while they wanted that, and I think they probably had their reasons for wanting that, but now they want to pull back on it. They want to soften their former hard stances. They want to soften the hostility that they have communicated towards men, towards straight white men, or really straight men of any color. It's gotten that bad. Men who are who have sex drives. It's and they aren't they aren't perverse sex drives. They're normal sex drives. They're sex drives that are oriented towards the opposite sex. These kinds of men have been targeted for endless abuse, and now it seems to be like, well, we've got to kind of go easy on them. Let's go a little easier on them. And again, I am not saying, please don't misunderstand me as saying, oh well, they're laying down their arms, guys, so let's meet them halfway. I'm not saying that at all. I should not be mistaken for taking any such stand. Okay, I am saying that it's interesting that it's happening. Well, let me tell you about a couple of things. Let me tell you a couple of things about Materialists, which I think is a movie that's worth seeing. It's not an action-packed movie. It's not like I said, it's not a great movie or a particularly profound movie. But I think I thought it was good, and I think it's definitely interesting as a cultural artifact. This movie dares to discuss things like, for example, there's one character. Like we hear a lot about how short guys have it really hard, and like they make fun of guys who get on some dating app and lie about their height, say that they're taller than they are. But they never get on and make fun of women who lie about their weight, which happens at least as often. But that's seen as out of bounds. Oh, you can't go there. You can't make fun of women for being fatter than they claim themselves to be. That's just tasteless. That's misogynistic. But it's fine. It's open season on short guys, isn't it? Well, one of the things that takes place in this movie is there's one character, and there are several A-list actors. I'm not going to get distracted by talking about their names or anything like that. One of them is somebody who a lot of people seem to have gotten really sick of lately, and maybe they have good reason to be. I don't know, but I'm not going to dwell on the actors' names. All right, I'm just going to say that the characters in this movie. There's one character in this movie who we find out who seems to have it all. Who's like suave and debonair, and like he's successful, so he's a catch. He's a real ladies' man, and he generally does fine with women, and he starts dating the main the heroine of the movie, who's a woman who works as a matchmaker. She works for this sort of high-end matchmaker organization in downtown New York. And what we find out is that this guy, who we think is just, just has it all, and is just a high status, high value man, wealthy, handsome, charming, no real flaws at all. Well, what we find out about him is that he used to be 6 inches shorter than he is. He's 6 feet tall now, but he used to be 5'6". And he and his brother, we find out in a crucial scene, both got this surgery, which exists. This is something that you can actually get. It's very expensive, but these guys are both, you know, from a wealthy family, so it's something that they can afford, or that their families can afford. But it's still incredibly, you know, it's got to be incredibly painful surgery where they break both of your legs and then they do something to make your, like, to make your legs longer. Like they stick something in that, maybe, you know, they stick some, I don't even know how it go, you know, I can't even explain it, or explain exactly how the procedure works. But but it's real. And he says, you know, before he got it, he was 5'6", and women didn't, you know, despite all of these other attributes that he had, women never gave him a second look. And after he got 6 inches taller, suddenly, you know, he was one of the most desirable men in the world. But he still lives with this insecurity, you know, because he thinks to himself, well, you know, do they really like me, or is it just this artificiality that I've this way that I've kind of mangled my body to make myself more desirable. And his character is treated just with such incredible compassion after this revelation is heard. It's unexpected. It's sort of like this is the kind of thing, like I had only heard of this kind of surgery like on incel forums, and, you know, people like really embittered incels who talk about how, you know, nothing ever, how if you're short, you're just already eliminated. It's over for you. But they're height. This is part of height maxing. You know, they actually do this to themselves. But this is a mainstream movie, and they're talking about this procedure, and they're talking about this, that they have this very high, this A-list actor, you know, playing this very high status man who has this secret, and that's pretty incredible. That you know, they would have a character like that, make a revelation like that, and have it be treated with compassion. We also see how the heroine of the movie, the matchmaker lady, we see how she had this guy that she was in love with, and who was crazy about her, and they were perfect together, but she ended up rejecting him because he didn't make enough money. He's a struggling actor trying to get by in New York, you know, occasionally getting roles, but, you know, he's just he's poor, you know. He's a starving artist, and she didn't want that. And she actually has a moment late in the movie where she says to him, "I'm sorry, I'm terrible. This is a terrible. How could you still want me?" Because of course he's still in love with her in spite of the fact that she rejected him. So he's kind of simpish in that way, but she, you know, owns up to her shallowness. She says, you know, this was just really, like, I shouldn't have been like that. That was materialistic on my part to just decide I didn't want to be with you, and you know, you were the love of my life, and we were perfect together, but I wanted to be with somebody who would who could take care of me, who would, you know, make my life comfortable, who had money. And that's why she started going out with the other guy, before she found out that she didn't really have chemistry with this other guy. You know, he was good looking. Of course, it wasn't hard to go to bed with him or anything like that. She you know, she found him attractive, but just there wasn't a spark there like she has with this guy who was her old boyfriend. So I think that's really something that in this movie, and in general, we see people struggling in this movie, like the clients that the matchmakers have, and how they deal with their situation, how they deal with the embarrassment of going to this matchmaking service to try to find somebody who would be a good romantic partner for them. What I'm struck by is how, even when it makes fun of the people, even when it shows them having unrealistic demands, or kind of being ridiculous about certain things, not being willing to budge about certain attributes, like wanting a guy who makes over $100,000 a year, and not budging on that or whatever. And they show men being unreasonable as well, which I think they kind of have to be. They have to be a little more even-handed than I think is probably fair or probably true to life, because I think men struggle a lot more in the dating world right now in a lot of ways. Women struggle too, but it's less about, it's less that they're never looked at or just glossed over or anything like that, the way that a huge number of men are. But I think I came away from the movie thinking to myself, this is a movie that treats people, men and women both, but what's more striking is the way that it treats men, compassionately. And it has the heroine shows that she's imperfect, and it shows how she's kind of ashamed of it. She's ashamed of what she believes to be a flaw in her character, that she's materialistic, that she wants to be with a guy who's well-to-do, and she doesn't want to be tied down to a guy who's maybe going to be going to struggle with making ends meet, which is of course her decision to make. It's all our decisions to make, but it is definitely a materialistic. It is definitely a shallow way to be, and it's definitely hurtful to the person who's being rejected for that reason. So the Materialists is you come away from the Materialists thinking this is a movie that sees the situation for what I guess it's mostly set among people who are millennial aged. So maybe it doesn't really talk much about Gen Z, which is maybe where more of the problems lie these days, especially with the females of the species. But you see it wrestling with these issues, taking them seriously, not just scapegoating men, not trying to virtue signal by, showing how feminist they are, by showing how virtuous women are and how disgusting men are. And this is a major motion picture with again, a lot of A-list actors, or A or A-minus list actors. That signifies something. So, again, another sign of something. Okay, and again, it's not my claim that we're seeing things turn around, but we're seeing signs that that our cultural guardians want to take things in a different direction, that maybe things aren't really working right now. And you know, maybe they didn't expect that Trump would get elected twice because they were being so insufferable, and people just got sick of it. And the half of the country that they turned against, gave them a collective middle finger, and they want to try to win them back, maybe. So those are my thoughts. What do y'all think?